We received this box a few weeks ago, and now that the keel project's done, I finally get to open it up and add some, this is gonna be some seriously nice bling that we're adding to the boat. And so we're gonna do something new that we haven't done on the channel before. We're gonna do an unboxing, and then I get to install this, which I'm really, really excited about.
Never in my life could I have imagined that you would do an unboxing on YouTube.
Here we are. Installation manual. A winch handle. Aha! This is a brand new Muir Windlass, straight from Tasmania.
For those who don't know, a windlass is an electric winch, usually close to the bow, that pulls up the chain attached to the anchor. On bigger boats, the chain and anchor get quite heavy, and pulling it up by hand or by a manual winch can be very difficult. It is a modern luxury, which makes family cruising more attainable and comfortable.
We go sometimes hunting for sponsors for our project, and Muir was at the top of my list as far as the windlass that we wanted to install on the boat. Imtra, which is the local distributor for Muir windlasses, we have a good friend there, J Mark, who brokered this deal with Muir. We are just extremely lucky to get this. This is a 48 volt, 3500 low profile windlass, as you can see. So this is going to be very low inside the windlass box. And it's also left-handed because, I don't know if some of you remember when I installed the windlass box, it is on the starboard side of the boat and the chain has to come around the opposite side of the windlass. Some would say a mistake I made in my design, but it's going to work out just fine. And then the motor is here. This will be installed underneath the deck, underneath the windlass box. It's a 48 volt. The reason that we wanted to do this is we're really trying to keep the boat lightweight. Normally what folks would do in a boat this big is install a whole separate battery bank that's up in the bow of the boat, and that would supply power to both a windlass and a bow thruster if it's up there. And that's to keep the cable size down and keep voltage drop from happening over a long distance from a battery bank. We are going to install a big 48 volt battery bank, which the higher voltage means that it will be less current and we can use smaller wires to take that voltage up to the bow. So I won't have to install a 48 volt battery bank up in the bow. I could just run cables from the main bank. So I was told that this might be the first 48 volt windlass in the country. The other thing we got, deck switches. There's the option of having a remote or foot switches. I prefer the foot switches. They also sent me a chain stopper, super shiny stainless chain stopper. So this is what, after we've raised the anchor, we can put this on the chain, and that makes sure that the anchor won't fall off the boat as we're sailing along. And then of course the solenoid box. There's a lot to do for this project, so let's get into it. A while back we built this anchoring system that's integrated into the boat that includes the bowsprit, where the anchor will slot into the bowsprit. The chain is going to run under the deck through this channel, and then there is a windlass box that is under the deck here. The windlass is templated in place here, and this week what I'm going to be doing is installing a beautiful new windlass. So I drilled the drive shaft hole, and so I got to drill the 4 mounting bolt holes. I used spray adhesive to make the template stick to the inside of the box so nothing moves on me. So yep, just gonna drill these holes and then we'll be able to fit it. And now we can go grab the windlass and see if it fits. I think I gotta make the bolt holes a bit bigger. It's just binding up on them a little bit. The next step is I need to build a platform for it so that the gypsy, that's the gear that the chain rides in, is in the same plane that the chain will come down the channel. The chain will come down as close to the bottom of the channel as possible, and then I need to raise up this windlass so that the chain meets that gypsy perfectly in plane. So when I built my windlass box initially, I wasn't sure what windlass I was going to get in the boat, and we were lucky enough to get this Muir windlass, and so I was hopeful that the windlass would mount close to, in good position, just on the bottom of the windlass box. But it turns out that what's really important is that the chain comes into the windlass at the right plane of the gypsy. So I needed to raise this thing up quite a bit in order to get the gypsy up to the level of the channel that the chain comes through. This is a 3.5 inch tall mounting block. What's really important about mounting windlasses is that it's obviously really, really sturdy. There's going to be tons of load on this thing. You can imagine if we're anchored in 150 feet of water, which will happen very rarely, but that's 150 feet of chain plus a 90-pound anchor. It's a lot of weight that's on that thing, on the windlass. So I built it. This is out of fir. The bottom is hollow so that because the bolts of the windlass are only so long. What I'm going to do is glue this thing into the windlass box. I'll glass over it. I'll glass the underside to make sure that everything is extremely sturdy, really well tied together. What I'm doing now though is I'm going to cut the holes like I did in the windlass box to get the windlass to fit on the block. We're going to take it up, put it in the boat. I'm actually going to screw this into the box so that everything is really sturdy, and I'm going to run the chain to it and make sure that everything is in line and it's working as it should. So I've got a mock-up anchor roller in here. This is about the diameter of anchor roller that we're planning on. This is just a test chain that I'm using. It's not the actual, I'll be using a 3/8 inch high test. This is just some 3/8 chain I found at the local consignment store, just to make sure that this chain run is going to run nicely into the windlass, which it totally does. I don't have the motor mounted to the windlass yet, and I would also have to have it hooked up to power. I just want to make sure that the chain runs, like I said, nicely from the roller to the windlass, and it looks fantastic. So the next thing to do is I'm actually going to glue down this mounting plate and then glass over the whole thing, both on the top and the underside of it.
While I work on installing this platform, I'd like to chat more about why I'm so excited about the Muir windlass. When Yanni and I conceived of the idea to document this project on YouTube, one thing we knew would make this whole thing possible was to work with brands that we know make good products and that we want on our boat. Businesses like Total Boat, Interlux and All Grip, Edson Steering, which we'll get to very soon, and now Muir windlasses. I actually feel quite proud that a company like Muir would choose to be a part of our project because I've been using Muir windlasses for a long time as a sailor and as shipwright, and I do think that they are the best in the business. Since I've been slowing down on the composites work on the boat, I actually didn't have any fiberglass left to reinforce the platform that the windlass will mount to. But I did have some leftover carbon fiber. So since I was anxious to get work done, I decided to make the platform bomb-proof. One concern with using carbon is that it does act like a dissimilar metal. So I did add a third layer of matte fiberglass that will help insulate the metal windlass from the carbon. I will need to be careful to also insulate the stainless mounting bolts later when it gets permanently installed. Muir was born out of a family of Southern Ocean sailors and shipwrights in Tasmania. Muir builds windlasses for small cruisers all the way up to super mega 300-foot luxury yachts. All of them are beautiful, but they strive to build windlasses that are stronger than the decks that they're bolted to. And as you can see, I'm trying to build a very, very strong deck. Now our windlass, the VR 3500, is a left-handed option, which means it spins counterclockwise to retrieve the anchor. The motor is 48 volts. The windlasses are designed for the extremes of the Southern Ocean with larger motors and drive shafts, more robust reduction drives, and bronze-chromed gypsies which last longer and have a smoother operation. The platform officially got 2 layers of 12-ounce carbon fiber double bias on the top and bottom that were vacuum bagged to the windlass box. I'm not going to test this, but our new windlass will be hard-pressed to rip out of this deck. I vacuum bagged the top and bottom of the box at the same time. Unfortunately, I didn't notice that my camera died while putting together the top bag. But this project took like 3 hours to laminate, and I have to say that one reason I really love working with Total Boat's high-performance slow cure epoxy is that it is actually really slow, giving me tons of working time at these autumn temperatures.
My next step is to paint the inside of the windlass box. It is going to be a very wet place. The chain brings in lots of water. The water coming over the bow as we're sailing is going to get water into that compartment. One thing I really don't want to happen is for any blistering to happen or any damage to happen from water. One common product that people use is gel coat. I like to stick to epoxy, and for this kind of application, for having a really, really hard and protecting coating, I like to use this Interprotect 2000 from Interlux. This is the same stuff that I'll be using to coat the keel with and the lead bulb. And so I'm going to put probably 3 coats of this rolled onto the inside of the box. This is going to be a closed box, and so I don't need to worry about any UV damage or anything to the coating. So I could just leave it as Interprotect if I wanted to. But like I said, if I get a wild hair, then I will coat it, or then I'll paint on top of this something, white or something. So I think this looks really good. Now I'm gonna go to the underside of the deck and install everything else, including a backing plate that I made. This is just a piece of 3/16 inch thick G10 plate. This is a good insulator because it's fiberglass instead of carbon fiber, and it'll help, act as a giant washer underneath the windlass. So I'm gonna put this on, I'm gonna put the adapter on, and then we're gonna put the motor on, make sure everything fits, and call it a day. This is the forward storage compartment. That's the forepeak up there. This is the windlass box, and my chain locker is this. And as you can see, the windlass, this is the drive shaft coming down. The bolts are under here. So I'm gonna go ahead and put up the backing plate. The next thing I get to install is the adapter plate. This adapter adapts the windlass to the reduction gear that's on the motor. The next thing to put up is the actual motor. And this thing is very heavy duty, as you can see. So this has gone really, really well. Like I said, this is just the initial installation. I'm just making sure everything fits, that it looks like it's going to work. We'll come back to this later, and when it comes time to do the wiring, we're gonna install some foot switches when I get the actual chain and everything, just to make sure everything works really well. So like I said, we'll be coming back to this later. And I'm sure some of you have noticed that this sits pretty tall, and it's actually not going to let the lid close. I do plan on cutting a nice hole in the top in this lid so that the top of the Gypsy will sit just at deck level, so I can access the top of it. So thank you again so much to Muir and to J-Mark and Imtra. We are thrilled to have this on the boat. This project would also not be possible without the support from our Patreons, and I have a few new Patreons to thank this week. First, thank you to Russ and Erica. They're from Virginia. Though they haven't done a ton of sailing, they've gotten their sons into sailing. This is a picture of their son John crewing in a dinghy race. They actually came out to the coffee and coffee cake in the cockpit party that we had during the Wooden Boat Festival, and it was really fun to meet them. And Russ plans on maybe attending the IYRS school in Newport, I think, here in the near future after he retires. Also, thank you to Richard and Janelle, who are from deep southeast Texas. They have had a few racer cruisers, San Juan sailboats that they sail out of Galveston Bay. And then lastly, thank you to Wes Snazza and his family. They're just excited to be supporting the project. So thank you again so much to everybody who's been supporting our project. Some of you from the very beginning, and we obviously could not do this without you. If you're interested or considering joining the Patreon community, you can find it at the Duracell Project on patreon.com. We'll see you next week.